Hey everyone, welcome to the ActiveReportsJS Creating JavaScript Reports for Your Web Application webinar. Hey everyone, thank you for attending the ActiveReportsJS Creating JavaScript Reports for Your Web Application webinar. My name is Joel Parks. I am the product manager for ActiveReportsJS. And in this webinar, we'll be going through the process of showing you how you can include an ActiveReportsJS report designer in a JavaScript application. We'll then go through the process of building a report. I'll show you how you can create your own report, bind it to some data sources, and use those data sources in some of the controls. And then from there, we'll hop into a separate JavaScript application where I will walk you through the process of integrating the report viewer into our application and how you can load a report and render it in the browser. So before we get into the actual integration, I'd like to quickly go over what ActiveReportsJS is. So ActiveReportsJS includes both a report designer and a report viewer. The designer is what you see is what you get designer built for rich data reports. There is both a web designer as well as a standalone desktop designer. It includes drag and drop interfaces to create tabular, chart, matrix, and barcode reports. As far as the data types that it supports, you can use REST APIs, OData data sources, GraphQL, and we also support the loading of local data. It also enables parameterized reports for dynamic content control, allowing your users who are viewing the reports to select based on a few different properties and modify the what's being displayed in the report based on their selection. You can also embed custom logic with expressions and scripts within the designer, and it integrates into your application as a design surface for end user report authoring. The report viewer embeds interactive reports directly into modern web applications. It supports all of the major frameworks, including React, Angular, and Vue, same as the report designer. It enables end users to view, paginate, search, export, and print reports. And it also allows users to export these reports to various data formats. So the supported formats are PDF, HTML, CSV, and Excel. It offers built-in drill down, drill through, sorting, and document map navigation, making it easy to both bind different controls together, but also for your users to navigate the report. It's fully client-side with no server-side dependencies, and both the report viewer and the designer come with a customizable UI that your developers can modify to fit the needs of your application. So now we're going to hop into the actual integration process. So we've got a basic index.html file here. A few basic things set up. So what we're doing first is we are importing 4 files, and we're using the Meshiest CDN to do so. You can either use the CDN, you can download the files directly from our website, or you can use NPM or Yarn to install them to your application as well. But here we have 4 files that we're importing. So the first 2 are CSS files that are required by the designer. First is the ArJS UI CSS file. This is the core CSS file. It's required by both the designer and the viewer. And then we are also importing the ArJS designer CSS file. This CSS file is required by the designer. If you're using the viewer, which we will be in a little bit, it has its own CSS file that is required to import. And I'll go over that once we get to the viewer. We are also importing this ArJS core JS file, same as the ArJS UI CSS file. This is the core one required by both the designer and the viewer. And then we also have the ArJS designer file, same with the designer CSS file. The viewer has its own separate one as well that is required whenever you're using it. So now to actually get started here, we're going to do a few things. First, inside of the body, we're going to set up our div here, and this div is going to be used to bind our report designer to. And we're going to go ahead and give this an ID. We'll just call this designer host. And the ID is what's going to be used to bind the control to this element. The next thing that we're going to do is inside of some style tags here, we're going to add a little bit of styling to the designer host element. So what we're going to do here is we're going to give it a height and a width. The height is going to be 100 view height, so it extends the entire height of the screen, and the width is going to be 100%. You can modify these so that the report designers and viewers fit the aspect ratio that you need. But just for this, we're going to have it take up the entire screen area. So with our div setup here, the only other thing that we have to do is actually go about integrating the report designer. So to do so, we are going to create a variable. We'll call this designer, and we'll set it to a new Meshius control. So this is going to be meshius.ActiveReportsJS.report_designer.designer. So this is how you create a report designer, and creating the viewer is very similar. Now inside of the designer, you can pass multiple arguments to it. The one that's required, however, is what we are binding the control to. So we are doing designer host. So now with that done, the designer will bind to this element and display within the browser. Now, there is one other thing that I will walk you through, and that is creating the ability to save reports. So to save reports, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a new variable called reports storage. We're going to set this to a new map. Now, what we can do is the designer has a method called set action handlers. Sorry. And this method, you can bind methods within set action handlers so that whenever a user takes a specific action, it will call upon the method. So what we're going to do is we're going to create this onSave method. And onSave by default will have an argument that gets passed to it called info, and that's just the info that gets passed to the onSave method. Now inside of that, what we're going to do is we're going to create a constant, and we'll just call this report ID. We'll set this equal to info.id. We're also going to then go to report storage. And we're going to use the set method to set the report ID and the info definition. And then finally, what this event is going to do is going to return a promise. And inside of this promise is going to be the data for the report. So now whenever you click save, it will return this promise that contains the information for the report. And from there, you can handle that promise however you want, whether you want to save it locally to your machine or whether you want to send it to send the file to your backend, say your API, to then store it somewhere. So this is really all that it takes to set up your own report designer within a JavaScript application. So now when we click this Go Live button, what it will do is it will go ahead and spin up the application within our browser. So this is what the report designer will look like, both the web designer as well as the standalone designer. And it is made up of 4 basic areas. So in the center, we have our report area. This is where all of the components are going to go in our report, where we can view the template. We have the toolbar at the top. This gives some basic text stylings as well as the ability to set some report properties. On the left-hand side, this is the Report Explorer and Control Toolbox. The Explorer will give you a hierarchical view of the report, as well as all of the controls contained within the report. And the Control Toolbox is what allows you to drag and drop our different components into your report and then set them up how you wish. Finally, on the right-hand side, there is the Properties panel, as well as the Data Connections panel. So the properties panel will show all of the available properties that you can set on the currently selected item. And then the data panel will allow you to set up data sources, use those data sources to create data sets. And then you can also set up parameters here if you need to, if your report calls for them. So now, excuse me, what we're going to do is we're going to go through the process of setting up our own report. We're going to build a small sales dashboard here that we can use to display some data via a tablets control, also known as a pivot grid, as well as a chart control. So to do that, the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to set up some styling for our report area here. We're going to select the continuous section here. This will allow us to set the page orientation and page size. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the page width and height here. We're going to change the width to 17 inches. We're going to save the height here to 8 inches. And then what we're going to do is we are going to adjust the margins here just so that it fills up the entire space of the report. So now that we have our report area set up, we're going to add a few things here before we actually get to setting up our data and binding it to controls. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to come to this, we're going to click on this section tab here, and we're going to add headers and footers to our report. So to do so, just simply click these two buttons. It'll give you your page header and footer. We're going to go ahead and adjust the size of these, just give them a little bit more space. And we're going to go ahead and select both of these, and we're going to give them a background color just so that they stand out a little bit from the main report area. Next, we're going to add some elements to our header and footer. First, the footer, we'll grab a text box from here. We'll go ahead and drop it here. And go ahead and just expand the area to give us a little bit more room to work with. And in here, we're going to put 2025 Meshius USA Inc. All rights reserved. So now we want to adjust this a little bit so that the text fits a little bit more with our footer. So we're going to come down to the text section. We're going to give it a different color here. We're just going to give it a dark gray. We're going to change the font size here, make this a little bit bigger. And then we are going to give it a vertical alignment so it sits in the center. So there is our footer. Next, we're going to do very similar things with our header here. So same thing, text box. Bring it up here, and we'll go ahead and expand the area that it has to live. And we'll go ahead and give this the text sales dashboard. Now, similar to the footer, we're going to go ahead and do some adjustments to the text styling. We'll go ahead and give this a different color. We'll give it a deep purple. Expand the font size. We'll try 28. And then we'll go ahead and give a bold font weight here just so it stands out a little bit more. And then finally, set that to middle alignment. Now, the one other thing we're going to add here is we're going to add an image to our header here. So to do so, simply drag and drop the image control. We'll go ahead and put this over here. Give it a little bit more area to work with. Now for images, you have a couple different options for picking the image that you want to do, you want to use for this control. So under appearances, there's this image section. We're going to click this expand button. We're going to open the drop down. And now, as I mentioned, there's a couple different options. If there are any shared images in the report, you can use shared images. If you're connected to a database, there will be database images here that you can use, or you can embed your own images, which is what we're going to do here. So we're going to click the load button. That'll bring up the Windows Explorer, and we'll go ahead and just use this ARJS logo image. We'll open that, and then we will select it. Now, as you can see, it doesn't really fit the area that we are going for right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the image sizing to fit proportional. And now it expands and takes up the entire area of our image. So now we have our header and footer ready. We can go ahead and actually start integrating some controls that are going to display some data into the report area. But before we do that, we actually have to include some data in our report. So to do so, first we'll need to set up a data source. So under the data sources panel here, we're just going to click add, and this will bring up the data sources window. First, we'll just go ahead and give this a name. We'll call it Contoso. Now, whenever you're setting up a data source, there's a few options you have to pick. First is the data format. So ActiveReportsJS supports both JSON and CSV data. For this, we're going to be using JSON. And it also supports, for source types, either remote or embedded source types. A remote source type will be expected to be given a web service endpoint. So this is a REST API endpoint. And it also gives you the ability, if you need to pass HTTP headers and query parameters as well. So say maybe you need to pass an authentication token for your user to access the data. You can do that here. And then you also have the ability to embed data types or your data. So for this, you can either load from a file or you can embed directly here just by pasting your data in this text box. We're going to be loading data from a file for this, and we have our sales data here. So we'll go ahead and open. So now we're loading in a lot of data here, so it's going to take a few minutes to populate it. But once it's populated, you will see all of our data here in this window. Now, as I had mentioned, go ahead and reload this. It seems like we ran into an issue importing our large embedded data. So we'll go ahead and do this again. Now, with that, since I accidentally refreshed the page, we're going to have to go through and very quickly recreate our headers and our footers here. Now, as I mentioned, we're loading a very large data source here. There's several 100,000 entries here. ActiveReportsJS supports very large data sets and very large reports here. So now we will go ahead and, as we can see, our data looks good. We'll go ahead and click Save Changes, and that should save everything and set up our new data source here. Not sure what is the problem, but the page doesn't seem to want to take our local data. Give me 1 second. I'll go ahead and stop this and relaunch it. All right, embed. Close a few things here as well. With the large amount of data, it does take a fair amount of the browser memory when you're loading in data. All right, there we go. So we have our data. All right, if this takes another moment here, we're going to go ahead and call a little bit of an audible here. Seems like we're having some trouble. So I'm going to go ahead and open the standalone designer here, and we will just go through using the standalone designer. So as you can see, all of it functions exactly the same as the web designer here. So go ahead and load data from file. Save changes. And now we've got our Contoso data source. So very quickly here, I will go through and do a little bit more setup that we had done previously. Readjust our margins here. Add our headers and footers back in. And we'll go ahead and re-add our text boxes and images. And finally, adding our image back in. All right. Now we can go ahead and add our data set from our data source here. So I'm just going to click Add Data Set. So we have our data set here. We'll just name sales. Now we have the only other thing we have to set up here is the JSON path. You can kind of think of this as sort of like a filter, which just determines what data we're going to actually pull in from the data source. And for this, we want all of the data, so we're going to use $.star. Now, before we save the changes here, we actually have to validate the data. That's just going to go through and check, make sure that there are no errors in the data that we've got set up. And once everything's validated, it will go ahead and populate this database field section here. So as you can see, it shows all of our field names as well as all of the data fields and the data types of those fields. So we can go ahead and click Save Changes. And now we have access to our data. So what we're going to do here is we're going to come in here to our control toolbox, and we're going to drag and drop a chart control, and we're going to go ahead and put this right there. Now we'll bring up the chart creation wizard. So for this, it's a couple different windows that we'll be going through. The first one is selecting the data that we're going to use as well as the chart type. Since we only have one data set here, it just defaults to it. So we'll be using our sales data set, and we'll be using a column bar chart. Now this next window is where we'll actually set up the bindings for the chart. So first is the fields category, which this is going to be the numeric value that we're going to display that the bars are going to take their values from. And for this, we're going to use the amount value, but we don't want to just display the amount for, say, each item. What we want to do is we want to display the sum amount. And that's because we're going to display all of the data by years. So now in the category group under the field section, we're just going to come in here and we're going to select year. And then finally, we're going to set up a series group. And this series group, in this case, is going to be based on the category. So it's going to group each of the bars based on their category. And the breakdown method that we're going to use is a stacked chart breakdown method. Now, if we click Next here, it'll give us a quick preview. From here, you can select from one of our built-in color palettes, but you also have the option, if you want to, using the Properties panel to set up your own color palette. And it also gives the ability to do advanced customization via these buttons down here. Now, you're also not required to use the advanced customization buttons. You can select the different elements of the chart individually in the report area and edit them that way. But for this, I'll show you how to use the advanced customization. So simply for this, we'll be adjusting the legend. So we'll click on the legend button. If we come in here, you can see color series legend. I'm going to expand this a little bit. We want the orientation or the position. We're going to put this at the bottom, and we want the orientation to be horizontal. Now we're going to go ahead and give our chart a little bit more area. Expand this to out, say right there. Now we'll come in, we'll select our chart title. We're actually going to delete this because we're going to create some custom titles for both our table and our chart. And then we're going to adjust the y-axis as well. So we'll select this. The first thing that we're going to do is this is going to be displaying currency values. So obviously we want our axis with the different ticks to be displaying the currency steps. So what we're going to do here is we're going to come down to labels under formatting, and we're going to select currency as our formatting. Now, the numbers that are going to be displayed in this axis are going to be very large numbers, so we don't need to display any of the decimal values. So we're going to change this from C2 to C0. And then finally, we're going to come all the way down to the bottom under scale, and we're going to change the min and max for the scale. So the min we'll set at 0, and the max, and since I know this just because I'm familiar with the data set, we're going to set this to 14 million as our max. And now with that, our chart has been complete. So now the next thing that we're going to add is the pivot table, or what we call the tablets control. So in the control toolbox, we are going to come down to tablets. We'll drag and drop this over here, and this will bring up the tablets creation window. So if you're familiar with using pivot grids, this is going to be very familiar to you. It's simply dragging and dropping the different fields either into the row group, column group, or value group. So in the chart, we based everything off of the category. So in the tablets control, what we're going to do is we're going to show the regional breakdown. So our row group is going to be region, and then the value that we're going to display is the amount. But like with the table or with the chart, we're going to sum the amount so that we can show the summation value for each region. So now we're going to go ahead and click OK here. We'll go ahead and expand the table areas a little bit more, and we're going to go ahead and add a new column as well. So now with that, we're going to go ahead and expand out the table just to give a little bit more room. And we're going to go ahead and add some text here to this third column header. So we're going to call this the trend. Now we're going to do a little bit of styling here. So we're going to go ahead and select all of the cells. We'll click text box so we can style all of these cells instead of the rows themselves. Now for this, we're going to go ahead and we're going to change the font family here. We are going to bump this up to 14 points. We're going to middle align everything here. And then we are also going to give some border stylings. Now with ActiveReportsJS, we give you the ability to not just determine whether or not you want to display borders, but what sides of the components you want to display them on. So now if we come down here with border, you can see there's this style section and a drop down that shows all of the different styles that you can select from. If you expand it, you can see that it shows you, you can select each individual border style for the side of the element. So for this, we want to display borders on the bottom. So we're going to use the bottom section, select solid, and then we are just going to give this a gray border color. Now we're going to select just the header cells this time. We're going to change the font weight. We'll just give these a bold font weight, make them stand out a little bit more. And then we're going to style this amount section here. So we'll select this. We're going to change this to sales. And then we'll select both of these cells. We are going to come down to justify, and we will, or text justify here. Sorry, text align. We'll set these on the right-hand side. And then we're going to come down and adjust the padding so that they're not right up against the end of the cell. So same thing with as with the borders. You can adjust the padding styling for the entire control, or you can adjust them for the specific sides. So we want to get some padding on the right-hand side. We're going to give this a 20-point padding. As you can see, it goes ahead and adjusts that a little bit. Now, the final thing that we're going to do is we're going to add a spark line underneath this trend section. But before we can do that, what we actually want to do is add a container to this cell. Now, what a container is effectively just a smaller report area within a report. So we can go ahead and drag and drop this container. We'll drop it in there. And the reason that we're doing this is because the control within the cell will overwrite the cell stylings. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this container so that we can properly give a bottom border styling. So same as before, we'll come in here, solid gray border. And now we can come in and we can grab our sparkline control and just drop this right into our our container within that cell. Go ahead and expand this. So we have two things that we're going to need to set: the series value and the grouping expression. The series value, like with our other controls, is going to be some amount. And then we are going to create a new grouping expression, and the sparkline is going to be broken up by quarter. And that's really all that it takes to set up a tablets control. Now, one final thing that we're going to do, as I mentioned, we're going to set up some custom headers for both of these. So we'll go ahead and drag a text box in here, and we will give it a sales by category. So sales by category, which is what's being displayed in the chart. We'll go ahead and give this some text styling. We'll increase the size. We will give it a middle vertical align, and we will align the text to the right-hand side. And then we will copy this box, this text box. We'll paste it in there. Drag this over here. We'll realign this to the left-hand side, and this will be sales by region. All right, and there is the report that we've created for the sales dashboard. With the designers, you also have the ability to preview the report that you've just built so that you can see what it looks like or what it will look like in the viewer when a user views the report. So the next thing that we are going to take a look at here is the report viewer. So we're going to come into the viewers index.html file. Now with this one, we're importing a few more files than what we were doing with the designer. So as I had mentioned before, we have the AirJS UI CSS file. And now we're importing the viewer CSS file instead of the designer, and same with the JavaScript file. Now there are three other files that we're importing: AirJS PDF, AirJS tabular data, and AirJS HTML. These three JavaScript files are used to determine what file output types your users can export as. So, for example, if you only wanted your users to be able to export their reports as PDF, you would not include these two options. You would just include the PDF option. Now, similar with the designer, we are going to come in here into the body, and we're going to create a div, which we are going to give an ID that we can use to bind our viewer to the element. Inside of the styles tag, like with the designer as well, come in here and give it a height and a width. Under view height, 100% width. And now we can actually go about implementing the viewer. So we'll set up a variable, just name it viewer, set this equal to our control. This one is meshius.ActiveReportsJS.reportViewer.viewer. And same with the designer, we have to give it an argument that it can use to bind to an element. So this will be viewer host. Now with this, it will just simply open the viewer to an empty report since we're not loading anything in. So we do need to load a report, which we can do using the open method. Now for the open method, all you would need to do is either pass the report itself or a variable that contains the report to the open method in order to open the report. So now we have this CodeClinic dashboard.rdlx-json file. That is our report file, and that's what we're going to be loading into this report here. So for this, we'll just go ahead and do CodeClinic_dashboard.rdlx-json. And this will go ahead and load our report into the viewer. So now we'll go ahead and click Go Live. And this will bring up our viewer. It'll go ahead after a second here and load our report that we've built, including all of the data. And as you can see here, it's showing the sales product by category breakdown. You can see our legend here at the bottom and all of the different fields that we're displaying here within the chart. And then you can also see the breakdown by region, Europe, North America, and Asia, showing the summation of all of the sales, as well as the spark lines that show the sales trends. One other thing to point out, just because this does not have a license key applied to the application, you are seeing this little watermark here, powered by ActiveReportsJS evaluation version. If you apply a license key, that watermark will go away and it'll display your report as expected. All right. And with that, we've come to the end of the webinar. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to go ahead and post them in chat, and I'll go ahead and answer them for you. Okay, so we've got a question here. ActiveReportsJS doesn't support any SQL databases. Do you have any conversion routines for apps that currently use Crystal reports? So first part of this question, ActiveReportsJS doesn't support any direct SQL database connections. If you want to use a SQL database, what you'll need to do is connect to it via a REST API. And the reason is for security purposes. As far as conversion routines for apps that currently use Crystal reports, no, we do not have any conversion tool at the moment that will convert Crystal reports into ActiveReportsJS reports. What level of customization is available in the report designer and viewer UI? So for the designer and viewer, and I'll go ahead and just bring up the viewer as an example here. Let's see here. So for the viewer and the designer, the toolbar at the top is entirely customizable. So these are all of the default buttons and actions that are available within the designer. But for example, let's just say that you didn't want your users to be able to print their reports. You only wanted them to be able to export their reports. You can configure the report designer and viewers to remove this print button so that their users don't have that capability. And it's the same with all of the different elements within the designer and viewer. In addition to that, you can use themes to style the designer and viewer so that they fit your application style. So this blue theme that we have here is just the default blue theme. On our demo site, we are using an orange theme, but there are a couple dozen built-in themes that you can use, and we also give you the ability to create your own custom themes if none of our default themes will fit your application's look. Can you provide reports with runtime data instead of binding the data at report creation? Yes, you are 100% able to do that. So what you can do is whenever you're setting up your data sources, you can actually set these up entirely empty, and you can just use variable values as the placeholders for the data. And then what you can do is you can use parameters. You can associate those variables with your parameters. So say we had a, we'll just go ahead and open this Contasso source here real quick. So say you had So you needed to pass an authentication token for an example to your data source. What you can do is say we name that token, we'll just call the variable bearer. So the parameter name or the variable name would be @bearer, and you would create a parameter with that same name, bearer. The @ symbol is just what's used to define that it is a parameter. In your code, what you would do is we make parameters accessible via code. And what you can do is simply just pass a variable from your application's code as that parameter variable. And then the report will take that parameter variable and pass it off to all of the controls in the report that reference it. So back to your initial question about the runtime data. Yes, you would simply define the variables in the parameter in the report, and then you would pass the location, say it's an API URL. You would pass that into the parameter. The report can take that and reference that. Are you able to provide additional information to the reports at runtime, such as parameters? Yes. So this was somewhat covered in the previous question, but it's not restricted to just data sources. So say you had a form that a user selected a couple of different fields from, just to define, say it was you only wanted to view data between, we'll say April and June of 2025. And you had fields in a control outside of the report that your users entered that information from. You would simply take that, pass it to the report parameters, and then it would take that, associate that with whatever variables you have set up in the report, and it will be good to go. If you use a REST API instead of static JSON, is the data pulled and stored within the RDLX-JSON file? How can it be refreshed? The data is not, if you're using a REST API, the data isn't stored within the RDLX-JSON file. What it does is it stores the URLs and references to where that data is coming from. So if, so say you had a report, you viewed the report, say it was, a sales dashboard, for example, and then you went back, we'll say 6 months later, to view that same report, and there's been a bunch of new data added since then to your database, it will go ahead and also pull that data as well. So you don't need to worry about, I've created this report in June, it's defunct in December. It will, any updates made to your backend, if you're using a remote data source, will be reflected in the report when you load it again. Does ActiveReportsJS provide a way to authenticate users trying to access specific data sets? Yes. So we had talked quite a bit about parameters. You would simply use a parameter in your data set call. So say like an HTTP parameter, you would set up your parameter there, or you would reference your parameter there, sorry. You'd reference the parameter there, and then in the application, say you're using like JWTs, you just pass the JWT to the appropriate parameter. It'll take that, pass it to the API call, and it'll reference it from there. How large of data set / report size does ActiveReportsJS allow? So as far as the actual data set goes, we have demos on our site that are using data sets that have several million entries. So as far as the size of the data goes, not really a limitation there. When it comes to the actual report size, we are restricted by browser memory. So there is a limit to how large the report can be. In my experience, it seems to be around currently 3,000 pages, and then the browser will run out of memory. That limit progressively gets larger as the optimization for ActiveReportsJS Report Designer and Report Viewer improves. So within the past 6 months or so, we've I believe doubled the amount of pages that you can have in an individual report before there becomes any performance issues. Can we create report templates / report sections that can be used as a base for other reports? Yeah, you are more than capable of doing that. So just as an example, So a lot of companies will use the same header and footer throughout the different reports. So for a report template, all you would do is you would create a report with your header and footer included, but say you don't include anything else, just the header and footer. You can save that report template just as an RDLXS JSON file, and the report designer can load that template back in. It'll load with the header and footer already created, and from there, your users can go about creating the report that they need from that template. In addition, we have something called report parts. This is similar to the idea of a report template, except it's for individual parts of a report that you can save and share with other reports. So say, for example, you've created a complex chart control that can be used by multiple reports. You can save that chart as a report part, and you can share it with your other reports. And then all that they would need to do is it would get treated like a control in the control toolbox, and you'd simply drag that report part on, select it from the pop-up menu, and from there, it would be included in your report, and it would be good to go. First time, is this live every day? No, we do not do this live every day. We have a rotating schedule of different webinars and code clinics that we'll do. We typically do one every month, so you can keep your eye out on our website for the next code clinic that's going to be coming around next month. I believe it is one for ActiveReports.net, if I'm not mistaken, which is our .NET version of ActiveReports. All right. Are there any other questions before we wrap up the stream? Doesn't look like it. All right. So with that, we've concluded the including a report designer and report viewer in your JavaScript application webinar. I'd like to thank everyone for attending and working through those few technical difficulties with me. It was a pleasure, and I hope you enjoyed and learned something. Thanks, everyone.